That's Imam Warithudeen Muhammad. That's the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Not that they wanted anything great for themselves, but they just wanted what was just before God for all people, all humanity. And the nature of a human being is to want to serve and love his family first, take care of, mama, grandmama, the wife and the children, the babies, want to be a responsible male and have some dignity. And that's what our young men are lacking. And, I don't like conspiracies, but I can go into conspiracies all day long. But if we made enough money for people back then, how much money you think we're making now? For people that just after wealth, greedy people. So what the people of faith, they say, oh, well, there's nothing we can do. But, I heard, Imam Mohammed even said it. He said that the pop culture is bigger than the church. It's bigger than the synagogue, bigger than the mosque. We can't compete on that level. But does that mean we shouldn't compete? I believe that if we see the evil in the world has more freedom than we do, then we need to join together and present the good so that at least people can have a choice, and we should respect the human intellect to want to choose the good over the evil. That we don't have to do it in the name of Christ or Muhammad or our religious beliefs. Do it in the name of decency and respect for that precious human intellect and the human spirit and the good life of the human being. I don't know how we're going to do it. I know we don't have the money to do it. But I would love to see good people fighting back against popular culture with good. Fight the evil with the good that we have in our souls and in our hearts, and God will redeem us and make us feel happy and at peace with ourselves. Because like I said earlier, that I believe that the goal for all of God's creatures is to experience the peace. Because even the human intellect, the body, the science tells that the human body produces chemicals and chemistry in times of fear or threat. And these chemicals aren't in support of good intellectual progress. The fight or flight type of behavior. And I'm sure that the poor African American women that don't have husbands at home, that may see other men or role models or males. It could be the policeman that's on the corner. It could be the young man that's at the door when she comes in and holds the door and helps her with her groceries or gives her a kind greeting or a smile, but she still knows her physical ability to protect and defend herself. She doesn't know if one night she might wake up in her eyes and that same guy that was carrying that bag is standing over her in her house with a weapon, threatening her. Something. So that type of energy is not healthy for a young mother or for any woman who's raising children. So a lot of our young males raised in an environment where there's no peace and security, how do you think they are inside? I don't care how strong and muscular and confident. They could be the basketball captain or the quarterback or the head of the football team or whatever. But if they don't have that stability that a male in the house provides to say, no, son, now's not time to use your muscle or to use your might. I have another example. They say the way they had a lot of, I love nature shows. In Africa, the elephants were fighting and killing each other. And these elephants were majestic and known for their, what appeared to be, animal intelligence. And leadership and societal nature. But the young bulls that came in the Mosque, this thing is a walking dinosaur. They were murdering each other with their tusks and fighting and everything. And they said it wasn't until they brought in a mature bull elephant amongst the young male elephants that the male elephants literally went out of musk. Musk is when all those hormones are raging inside the body. That they actually reversed the physical nature of these young men just by bringing in a mature older male and said, this is how you handle these emotions, son. Like, you see those women, they're waiting for you over there. They're not running from you. You don't have to snort and spit and kick dust and murder each other. And that looked like what's happening. So if some of us older men who experience life and understand the physiology of the male and let them know that it's nothing to be afraid of, you know? And this is our job. It's a really big job. You can't be father to everybody. Could you imagine the burden on the average police officer? Because now we're telling the police that, you know, you got to be daddy in the neighborhood. You know, daddy don't carry a gun. I know I don't. I don't walk around the house with a big pistol on and a uniform. So it's only so much he can do, and so much the law can allow, and so much burden we should put on city officials, you know. I'm sure somebody looked over the slaves during slavery, and but it still didn't build industry in the African-American communities. The only thing that's going to build industry in the African-American communities is to encourage the God-given nature for a man to be responsible for home life and community. And that's what we hope for New Africa. It's a good home life, a good model of what nature, and to spread the word to our people that there's nothing wrong with saying that you are a people. Because of our religion, Islam, it teaches us that God created us, individual groups, tribes and nations, so that we would learn to love each other, as Imam said, and not despise each other, and so that we can benefit from one another and learn from one another. And the African American people, as we know, we have a lot to offer. Is it a time that we profit from what we offer the world? Our culture, our taste in food, our taste in clothing, even our spirit for faith and our love for God. And in Islam is so beautiful. I would encourage anyone that even if you have no intentions to convert to Islam, but look at the logic and look at what God blessed on the soul of one man. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was no different from any one of us. His nature, his creation was identical to your creation. He is a child, a son of Adam, just as all of us are sons of Adam, sons and daughters of Adam and Eve, however you want to say it. That God blessed him with such a purity of soul that he was able to accomplish so much in his lifetime and give so much. I lost track, I was going too many places, but yes, Imam Warithudeen Mohammed, it's the human nature, the God-given nature in you. A person asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what do we do when you're gone? He said, you look to the Quran and what I've left you of my life and my sunnah, what we call it, his what he did in life and how he handled matters and what he said. And then he said, well, what if we don't have that? Then he said, you appeal or rely upon the best of your own created, God-given nature. Rely upon the best of yourself, your best aspirations, your best ideas, your best mind, your mind to want to be decent, your mind that wants for his brother what he wants, for your brother, what you want for yourself. You know, the spirit that tells you, I can't sleep knowing my neighbor's hungry. You know, the spirit that tells you, I'm not happy not knowing that family is safe, you know. And we have to look after each other. And don't mind being a moral authority. God created you as, the Christians say, vicegerent and Khalifa. We don't like, a lot of people, they shy away from these terms, but Khalifa means a responsible person that accepts the responsibility of his environment. And if that includes, firstly, to your fellow man, your brother, because God says, how, you know, people say, who's best? The best, God says, the best of you is the one that is best or most useful to all human beings. Because God is without want or need. So how do we serve God and how do we help God? by helping out each other, helping your brother, helping your sister. So what we do for each other brings us the most reward. It's another beautiful thing we have in our religion. They say, well, the blessing in eating a meal is when you eat alone, is you eat food, and the body needs food to live, to feel strong, the mind to grow, and so you can go out another day, face another day. But that's a small blessing compared to blessings that you get with company and with friends and with food. And why? Because at a table, you can know that there's a group of here eating the food, and you can make sure that not only your belly is full, but you make sure that food is spread out and is shared amongst the group of people, and then you have more full bellies. And with more full bellies, the mind wakes up. Now you have human converse, which discourse between human beings, which animals can't do. And the human intellect, if you look around you, we can even go out into outer space and look back at Earth. If you look at Earth, you can't see a single thing that the human intellect hasn't touched. And the human intellect is such a great gift from God that there's nothing that is in the material world, even the spiritual world. There's nothing that can come into this vessel that the human being does not benefit, doesn't find great mercy from God in. Everything that believers in Islam say that God is Lord of, in the Quran it says all the worlds, but our Imam, he explained it a little deeper. He says all the systems of knowledge, the great mighty oak tree that you see branching up, going up hundreds of feet in the air, that the entire blueprint for that great mighty tree that's a resources for all creatures around it, shade, like a natural air condition and homes for many animals, food and life. The entire blueprint is in that itty bitty seed. And that's how God's creation is. The further we dig, the more we study, the more benefit we get. The material world is nothing less, or nothing more than a reflection or an example of the potential of what's in us in the spiritual life. That if you study the material world with your intellect as a spiritual creation, you grow. You grow. So we encourage, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad used to say, he said, brother, he said, before you speak, even open your mouth, you should think 5 times. And Imam Muhammad, he told us, he said, man means mind, woman means womb of mind. And he said, God gave no greater gift to the human being than the human intellect. And he even went further to explain, said, well, isn't it the human heart? Yes, it's the human heart. That Allah revealed the human heart on the Quran, on the human heart, because the human heart had the capacity to handle it. But it wasn't the human heart that built this great civilization, it was the human intellect. Once the heart engaged and gave the courage and the strength to that individual and the desire, it's out of love. When I was hooking up the mic, I didn't know any other way to explain it. He was like, why you know, I've seen people ask me, why am I doing it? I said, I guess it's not that the help. Now, if I had some money, I would hire somebody better than me. Quite natural. So I forgot to tell y'all that I'm a poor female. You know, we're poor. And we're poor. Some people may say by choice, but we have a set of rules that we live by. We do things for God's sake and for the sake of good, not for the sake of greed. And a lot of times nothing is enough. And then when you start caring, then you need more. So it's because I care and I know it. And sometimes if you care about a thing, and maybe you're the best person for the job, if you really care about that thing, it keeps you up at night and think about it, that's God, telling you, hey man, this is your job, this is your responsibility, you should do something about this, And that's what we need most, is to listen to what God gave us, this vessel that we're learning, that if we listen to it, that we can get a lot of help from it. The human being, like people think that, you know, lifting weights and, you know, making me strong, running many miles. And then I remember the vegetarian period. We've gone through a lot of fads, a lot of fad things. And all them people, you know, God forgive me, I don't like to make light of things, but a lot of them people was in the grave right now. And then a lot of the great athletes, you know, they fought. And I said, so what is it? So when you're at wit's end, you think, well, what did God say in the Quran? He said, everything in moderation. You know, everything in moderation. And just, might have been the day before yesterday, there's a commercial that comes on television, and they were promoting a new show or something about, you know, they present this woman, she's a doctor, somebody. They said, just moving burns as many calories as jogging or running. Just get up and move, you know. And I said to myself, I knew it. I said, because I struggled for many, I had a weight problem since I was my son's age, you know. And one time I said, because I have the strong will, I was on the treadmill every day and lifting weights. And it looked like the harder I worked, I didn't feel the pounds coming out. So I tell myself, I said, well, that's muscle, you know. But then the more you work out, the more you eat. I lost 30 pounds at one time, but then I injured myself. So I said, well, my back, I still got back problems from weightlifting. But recently, in about, 6 or 7 years, I lost close to 30 pounds, maybe 10 years. I think I lost close to 30 pounds. It might be more. By moderation. I didn't know it was going to take me 50 years to discover that pain when I'm at the dinner table means stop eating. You fool. I just listened to that, and every time I ate the next time, I was full again. But what I do now is I eat when I'm hungry. Whereas before, I'm waiting for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and I'm really hungry, and then I eat too much. But now I have some peanuts on hand, I drink a glass of juice, and this thing. It could be because I'm older, but when you're younger, if you can manage this vessel where you can keep yourself relaxed and at peace and understand what's going on with your body and in your community, and if you have things that are causing you stress, get rid of those stressful things. Because most of us eat for stress, most of us make all the mistakes we make due to stress, that God wants nothing more for you than to have the state of peace, the spiritual life. And nothing's more sensitive than water. That's why they say the spirit was on the water. You know, the water, you can touch a still body of water or a pool of water on one side, it's like no matter how much, if you disturb it, it's going to register all the way on the other side. So the whole body feels it. So it's very important to nurture and to take care of that the human soul, the spiritual life, and try to create the best conditions for it so that you can be good for society, for yourself and for the rest of your society. I didn't think I was going to have much to talk about, but I know most of y'all out there asking me to shut up right now. So if anyone has any questions or any thoughts or ideas, I used to tell my children all the time, I say, son, the only stupid question is the one you don't ask. There's no such thing as a dumb question. You know, so if it's something about Islam, about our family, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, here is a man that accomplished, he had farms, he was working on building building hospitals. He had communities that loved him all over. And my children, I wish I could have explained to them and helped them to understand when they were young that people know you before they meet you because they hear that you're the grandson or the great-grandson of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad or the grandson of Imam Warithudeen Muhammad. And I don't know, some people may even have opinions about me. So you're never going to get to just be yourself. So the best thing you can do is to be the best of yourself and be a servant and be submissive. Because as soon as you think that you can tit for tat or respond in a proper way to people that already think they know you, you're going to fail, you know. Because I tried it. And I used to think to myself, I said, oh, why is he looking at me like that? And, after a while, I'm pretty, because I don't just dismiss things, you know. When I was young, I would really worry. It would worry me. It would hurt my feelings. He's looking at me strange. And I said, oh, that's because God knows what somebody said about me, my father, my grandfather. They assume they already know me. So my job is to disappoint them if they're expecting to see a bad person, and make them feel good and proud if they're expecting to see a good person. So I always want to be the best person that I could possibly be, and the most humble, and because none of us is promised tomorrow or know what God has in store for us, but through service, we at least know that we did our best and that we are honorable before God and honorable before our own conscience. And the spiritual life, I believe, is the salvation, but we have to have balance. Like I said earlier, God says that everything in moderation. The food, too much devotion to God, because we're human beings. That's what makes the human being the special creation. The human being is a little bit above the angel. And if we know the nature of an angel, the nature of the angel is pure light. He does nothing but obey God. The angel can't do anything but do what his Lord has commanded him to do, right? So how are you better than an angel? How's that possible? Because you have free will. Wouldn't you respect the person more if you didn't have to manage them and say, well, okay, this is your blueprint, follow it, and that's it? They have the freedom, then they can show you things that you put in their potential that will please you even more. And that's how God views us, that he knows the potential he put in man. So he already knows where you're going, individually and collectively. So with that human potential, when you show respect for that God-given human potential, there's no limits to what you can achieve. You know, I'm sorry, I get distracted. There's just so much. But if anyone has heard any the stories about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, how he was able to, and Malcolm X, he played a big role in bringing the young people, people. I think Malcolm was around after Vietnam or before. Where was Malcolm in that era? Just before. He was just before Vietnam. And I remember a lot of African Americans and Americans were despondent with the social conditions and the way they felt the public was being treated, and just people in fear. It was a time for moral uprise. You know, people were more moral conscious back then. So Elijah Muhammad's word reached a lot of African American people, and a lot of you all might not know this, but at the time, there was a certain number, of African Americans in America, and 10%, which was 3 million, you could do the math, I guess, but the important part to me is that 10% of all African Americans identified with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam when he passed at that time, right? And that's amazing. And it was only 3 million, and I know we've quadrupled that in numbers now, but for that many people to identify with this man, he must have had a powerful message. And his message was no different from what Farad had came and given him. And we don't know if others had tried to come with that message, but it was the condition of his soul and his mind and his love for his people that he was able to take that message and impress on the soul and the hearts and the minds and express what he got from it and convey it to his people. And I'm sure as he aged and saw the political climate change in America from one racist climate to one that was penitent, and for one where the common man was willing to stand side by side with African American people and go out into the streets and fight against the evils in the world, that even what appeared on the surface, this tough, hard-hearted, I wouldn't say hard, he was never seen as hard-hearted, but hard-line preacher from Detroit and Chicago was able to come before his people in his national meeting and offer kind of a form of, I don't have the best word, not amnesty, a form of acceptance of the white race. And that he said that if they can come away from that type of evil that they were doing to African American people and the language that they were using, and make the changes that they made, because this was after civil rights, right? That he said that if you, and there were other words, for some reason it sticks in my mind, how he said that if you get paid an honest day's work, for an honest day's work, he said to work for the white man and earn an honest day's pay for an honest day work, or something to that effect. And I don't have a word in my mind that he used for forgiveness, but he accepted them. And in case those that were in the audience, because some of them, all they see is the picture language that he used, the black man and the black king with the crown and the gold and diamonds and rubies all glistening off the bright lights. They can't see nothing with that. So he made a point of having two Caucasian men from Europe or from Turkey, right? Sitting beside him. And he sat down beside them, right? And you can see it on YouTube, that's how I saw it. That's YouTube looking at him one day. And it's just amazing that, and he also made those lessons, the original lessons. And here it is, this is his Bible. I never heard it called a Bible, because he actually taught from the Holy Bible and the Holy Quran. But those lessons that Farai gave him, you could say that was his Bible or his blueprint. He made it contraband. He said, we are not going to teach, and he did that early on, right? That was it might have been in the 60s, 50s, or I don't know, in the 50s, right? He made it contraband. So those lessons, the ones I guess they teaching over there at the Nation of Islam, I don't know if they still use them. Or sometime I think they might be. Huh? 59. Oh, he stopped in 59. Okay. Yeah. So that's amazing. So that means Malcolm was never allowed to even use that type of teachings, was he? Nah, he didn't use it because it was contraband. If he made it illegal to use it, then either he couldn't use the common person, it wasn't circulated because it was actually too powerful. It was like comparing, maybe Tylenol to electric shock therapy or something. It was too primitive, but it worked. It was a primitive medicine that worked. And sometimes those primitive medicines kill people. I had a young man that I grew up with, his family, his household, his mother used to feed us and take care of. He's in prison right now because he's a monster. And it always bothered me that he told me one day, he said, your grandfather messed up a lot of people's minds. And I said, no, dude, your mind messed up because you messed up. I know I know what they say about you. He was a criminal, he was a bad guy. Well, my friend, I just had to go get past him to go to visit my friend. His brother was my friend, and he was scared of him. So, but a lot of people, in his defense, a lot of people took that medicine and never came back. A lot of people still walking the streets and still trying to figure that puzzle, But I still can't blame the doctrines because more people are prone, genetically disposed to mental illness than others. But what I haven't heard is from those people, you might get a person that's really way spaced out and bizarre, more bizarre than any Hollywood film. But you don't usually, I never heard of a violent one. Oh, well, yes, I have. I take that back. There's a couple violent ones in the history, but I haven't heard of it making people violent. And there's violence in some people. So, but for Honorable Elijah Muhammad to take that type of teaching away from African American people, it must be because he discovered the strategy of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Imam Muhammad, and I agree with him, not just because he's my father, that I don't think that type of doctrine was necessary. Now, I don't dismiss it because I use an analogy. I used to stand behind the table and sell my father's speeches on cassette tapes and CDs.